Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. So, in light of two of the biggest topics that happened this week in professional wrestling, at least on this channel, CM Punk obviously been really driving the content creation world because of how divisive he is within the fan base between AEW and WWE. And in a lot of ways, and you guys will snicker at this because you think I'm chronically obsessed, but here part of it is, you can weave a lot of topics into certain things. And that's the beauty of this channel is like when you guys react to stuff and you guys view stuff, I look at that and I'm like, okay, how can I talk about this in a unique way to like, give back to you guys and give you guys a reason to talk about stuff and respond to it. And so I was thinking about this. Mercedes Monet and CM Punk, they may seem different in the ways their routes have gone in terms of like Punk has been a lot more outspoken than Mercedes in terms of like, and has gotten himself into a lot more hot water with his words than say Mercedes has. Mercedes, in terms of the backstage politicking and stuff, has kind of gotten herself into a little bit of hot water with the fan base. But in some ways, they're very similar because they're very divisive in like, they generate a reaction. These two are like the epitome of tribalism within fan bases. And yes, I understand that I'm very critical of Mercedes, and you guys may interpret that as tribalism, but the same can be said for people who want to hate on CM Punk. They have their reasons for that too. So, like this whole thing it's very interesting, like when you think about how these are probably the two most talked about people and the two most, maybe the two most polarizing figures in 2025 in professional wrestling, because you just know like they drive the conversation no matter what they do. And in that respect, I think, you know, it can be, I can, kind of admire that they're always in the center of the storm. And, Mercedes, even though I don't like a lot of stuff that goes on with her, she says it herself. She's the conversation, the standard bearer. And like, CM Punk has been, the center of the storm really for his entire career, but specifically in the last 15 years. Really, it started in 2011 with that pipe bomb, ironically, 14 years ago to the day, almost identically to the day. And depending on when you're watching this, I'm recording this at on West Coast time, exactly 14 years to the day. Um, but if you look at their trajectory, specifically in the last like 5 years, Punk and Mercedes both had same deal rollouts with Tony Khan and AEW. Punk had the first dance at Rampage, where he was, this big shiny new toy. It was basically a rumor. Gets his own entrance, gets his own promo segment. Mercedes had the same thing happen last year in Boston at Big Business. So even though, like, whether you love them or you hate them, like, there's different reasons to like them or not. There's a lot of similarities here, more so than I think people want to let on. And like I said, I was thinking about like, this week and like, reflecting on some of the content that we've created. And there's been a lot of activity here on the channel in terms of like, the positive things. And then obviously, the discourse with CM Punk that was really getting toxic, specifically near the back half of the week where, the whole incident with the kid in Saudi Arabia. Then he apologizes at the kickoff show. Then he does the whole John Cena 2003 gimmick, the word life rapper thing. And a lot of people were just using that as a referendum on him. So it's, you know, it's, it's very interesting how you can generate a reaction and be a part of the conversation in 2025, no matter what you're doing. Like whether, I like a person or whether I don't like a person, um, I can still say that like these are two of the greats of all time. They really are. And, even though I think that a lot of what's happened with, Mercedes is really rubbed me the wrong way because a lot of but at the same time, a lot of stuff that Punk said, he's kind of gone back on too. So I can't like, there's a lot of, give and take with these two where you're like, okay, you can say this about them, but there's this little drawback. They're not perfect. Neither of them are perfect. But it's really interesting considering, you know, how Mercedes has really driven the conversation and really always been at the center of the storm because we had the "We Want Sasha" stuff, and that was one of those things where it kind of driven. Then you have obviously the CM Punk chants that were driving the conversation, no matter where he was, no matter where. So, despite not really crossing paths, and I know Punk has been supportive of Mercedes from afar, but they never crossed paths like directly ever when because Mercedes didn't cross paths with him in AEW. And then obviously Punk never really crossed paths with Mercedes when she was Sasha Banks in WWE. So it's kind of wild that here we are, like two similar rollouts, two similar things in different divisions. Like how they've gone about it with their words is a little bit different. Mercedes hasn't really gotten herself into backstage fights or anything. She's just walked away when she's had some issues with things. But Punk walked away. Punk walked away back in January 2014. Remember that? The walkout, it was in Cleveland, I think. Yeah, he walked out of there and after the Royal Rumble in 2014. And, Mercedes, she walked out after WrestleMania. She walked out before a Raw 3 years ago. So it's really interesting when you think about these two, and considering like, these are two of the biggest figures that, in terms of wrestling conversation and within this channel, you guys clearly have a interest in hearing me or any content creator talk about these two because whether no matter what they're doing, they're generating reaction. I think, Mercedes has kind of done a little bit of damage to herself, but to be fair, Punk has too. Even before a lot of this stuff with, the Saudi Arabia stuff, which was going to reflect bad on him anyway, he was going to have to go no matter what. So, but it's because who he is and what he's and how visible he is and what he said and the nature of how he left AEW, which I think is also a stain on his legacy. Punk has done damage to his legacy through a lot of his actions. Mercedes, in terms of her wrestling, has never, she's maybe not, she's been great, but at the same time, a lot of the booking patterns, Punk never went on a massive win streak. He never he won the AEW championship when he didn't have to, but there's been some rumors going around that. Then I you guys can verify that for me. That he may have not even wanted to win the championship in the first place. And then obviously that set off a whole chain of events where, now here we are, he's in WWE. We never thought he'd be back. But 14 years after the pipe bomb, man, it's just crazy now. Here we are. He's going into a match in Saudi Arabia, uh, getting booed just mercilessly by fans in Saudi Arabia. And, Mercedes is getting boos. She's won a lot of championships since she's created, she's got her and these guys and also legions of fans. Again, I said at the top of this video, one of the biggest similarities between these two is their legions of fans, and this is the epitome of tribalism. It's the epitome of what, really kind of made, some wrestling discourse really kind of like unpleasant. So, we'll see how these two and their trajectories go for the rest of the year. Obviously, Punk has got a big time match with John Cena at Night of Champions for the WWE Championship, and Mercedes Moné in just 2 weeks' time will be facing Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. So, really, insane time in wrestling, a lot going on. We will have a lot more coming here on the channel. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.